Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessino. It's very early in LA right now. It's like 4 a.m. 4 a.m. But I know some games are coming on today, so I have to wake up early, and as long as I'm not waking up to watch Arsenal, it's fine. But yeah, I just wanted to hop on really quick before the Manchester United and Leeds game just to talk about the news that's coming out, or kind of came out yesterday, that Arsenal are willing to sell Aubameyang. And I kind of figured once they weren't available for that game, Lacazette and Aubameyang, that a lot of these rumors would come out. We know that Arsenal are actively trying to sell Lacazette, but when you add Aubameyang into that, it starts to become a little bit more worrying. And I'm not saying that this is 100% true. The thing is that you never really know, right? Because it's a very opportunistic time to get a lot of clicks and a lot of traffic to your website. If when Aubameyang is not playing, you start to link him with a move away, especially because the transfer window is still open. So I am kind of talking about this with that in the back of my mind. Oh, I just realized my real camera is not on. Hold on real quick, you guys. I don't like the way I look right now. Let's see. That's better. So I guess my main thing is just like, my reaction to this is just like, why? Like at the beginning of the season, how do we always end up starting the season with so much drama and so much stuff going on that just is no other team starts out with this much drama on day one of the season. Not anybody. As soon as you have Aubameyang and Lacazette out, it's a thing. And you know how Arteta is when things are happening behind the scenes and he can't control it. And my thing is instead of trying to keep things under wraps, solve the problems. Stop making the same issues or the same problems over and over again. We didn't have to re-sign Aubameyang. We didn't have to not take the deal from AS Roma last summer for Lacazette. We do this every time. We re-sign players to big deals after we can't sell them, and we keep people too long. So now we're in a summer where we obviously need a new striker, and we have two strikers that are 30 and above on 200 plus grand a week who are not very good at the moment that we're trying to sell, apparently. So hearing about Aubameyang is not really that surprising. And is anybody shocked that maybe he'd be interested in a move after the way he played last season? And I know we gave him a lot of passes because of the malaria and this and that. Quite frankly, I just think that he signed the new deal. He was promised new players to come in of the quality that he expected. They didn't come in. A player of Aubameyang's quality after what happened in the FA Cup, basically him helping us win the FA Cup. To sign a new deal for Arsenal, like, and to be expecting new players to come in, Thomas Partey, Willian, and Gabriel is probably not what he was expecting. No creative midfielder came in, and then we didn't register Ozil. Do you really think that he went into last season, like, excited to play for Arsenal? Probably not, because we're in the Europa League. Then fast forward a whole nother season goes by. Not only do we not make it into Europe, but he's probably being told the exact same things, what we've been told for the last how many years about what's going to happen at this club. We're going to be ambitious. We're going to bring in this player. We're going to bring in that player. Has that even happened? So are you surprised that maybe there's a move on the cards for Aubameyang? I'm not. And being one of the people that were in the silent minority on this whole Aubameyang thing, I just want to say that I'm let's just learn our lesson. Just because somebody is really good for us for the moment doesn't mean we need to re-sign them on a contract that essentially chains us to them to the end of their career. Like, we just did it with Ozil. Why would we do it with Aubameyang? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I'm just here just kind of like, This is just not the way you start the season. And it's just so funny because we went through preseason and the club is trying to spin this whole like, oh, preseason is great. We have our plan for the transfer window. We got it all together. First game of the season goes by, everything unravels, and boom, we're sitting here looking at two of our strikers potentially wanting to leave, a loss on the first day of the season, Arteta making comments about the documentary. And it's just, here we are again. I think if we can find somebody to take Aubameyang, we need to try to do that. One of the strikers needs to go in order for us to freshen things up top. I said the entire summer that there was no way that we should go into this season with Aubameyang, Lacazette, Martinelli, and Balogun as our striker options. We don't have a suitable striker. We don't have somebody that can actually score goals this season. We don't have a striker of the caliber in which we need in order to get into Europe. Let me just put it this way. Manchester City, very good team. They don't really need a striker to be good. Manchester United, they have Cavani. We don't have anybody of Cavani's caliber on our team. Chelsea just bought Lukaku. Leicester have Vardy and bought Patson Daka as well, and they have Iheanacho. Liverpool have Mane, Salah, and Firmino. Aston Villa have two strikers. Leeds has Bamford. We don't have a striker that is going to get us the goals that we need and fit into our system. We desperately need a striker, but we can't get a striker if Aubameyang and Lacazette are still here. And it's unfortunate because I feel as though they'll miss a couple of games in the beginning of the season because we're trying to sell them. We'll lose games. We won't sell them, and they'll come back and do what Leno did yesterday. Have a horrendous game because your mind is just not here. We basically have tried to sell all of our senior players this summer, you guys. Every single one of them. If you count Lacazette and Aubameyang, we're talking Bern Leno, Bellerin, Xhaka, and William. Trying to sell every single one of them, failing to do so, and then them having to come back into this Arsenal side completely uncommitted, still on high wages, and then the next players up are kids. This is unacceptable for us to go into a season like this. And the last thing Arteta wants is for the mess that is going on behind the scenes to be unveiled to the fans and the public to be criticized. So having a camera in front of Arteta's face for this entire season he is going to get sacked. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. Because he will not be able to withstand the pressure of having the cameras in his face, the fans on his back, and a team that he's looking at that's not good enough to compete. Oh, and Arteta and Adu not doing his job either. So we pretty much set ourselves up in a way. And I hate that about the club, that instead of solving the issues, they decide that they want to cover it up and paint a pretty picture. And it didn't even it took 15 minutes for us to know that shit wasn't okay. We actually knew things weren't okay from the moment that we knew Aubameyang and Lacazette were not in the side. And I don't want to say that they're, if it comes out that they were actually unwell, fine, fair play to them. But the point still stands that we're trying to sell all of our senior players still as the window is still open and the season is starting. And these players will come back into their team and we will still have to rely on them because the next group is either Pablo Marie, Holding, Chambers. Basically mid-table players that we can't count on, or children, kids. This is unacceptable. Like, it just really is. And just laying that all out makes me feel like this season is going to be really, really bad. And this is not just off of the first game. Like, I'm not even talking about the tactics and how we played. I'm talking about the way that we've gone into the season, knowing that we're going to go through these last 2 weeks of the transfer window, trying to offload players that desperately want to leave this club, that we desperately want to get rid of, only for them to stay and us to still have to rely on them. You can't rely on Aubameyang. You can't. If his head is not in it, You can't rely on him, and I'm a Dortmund fan, so I would know. I never wanted him at the club because I know how he acts when he's not in it. And I'm not saying that the club is not at fault for promising him things when he signed that new contract and not upholding their end of the bargain. You can't tell Aubameyang you're gonna go out there and be ambitious and come back with Gabrielle, Willian, and Thomas Partey, and that's it. You can't. But still, you cannot rely on him. You're not gonna be able to rely on Lacazette. Bernd Leno is a liability at this point, and the way that he played yesterday, I don't think anybody can say that his head is in it. This is somebody who I think is pretty obvious that he wanted to go, but because no offers came in for him, he's still here. Bellerin obviously wanted to go 1 foot out the door, nobody wants him, he's still here. Granit Xhaka desperately wanting to leave, talking about the weather in Rome, buying a house in Rome, packing his things, only to U-turn to come back to Arsenal. Everything is still the same, and he has the armband. This is just it's unacceptable. It just is, and I don't feel confident. Excuse me. I don't feel confident at all that we're gonna be able to solve these issues. Like, I really, really don't. So, I don't know, you guys. It's just kind of like a little bit of a rant, but I don't see us being able to offload Aubameyang. I just don't see it. Like, I really don't see it. And when the transfer window ends and we've been able to get Odegaard, we have Ben White, and we're starting games with Aubameyang and Lacazette up front, Saka, Odegaard, Thomas Partey, maybe if he can get fit, Xhaka, some combination of Chambers, Bellerin, Cedric, Ben White, Gabriel, and Tierney, and Leno. Is that a team that's gonna get into the top 6? No, it's not. It's not good enough. We still don't even have a backup goalkeeper, not a suitable one. A lot of people got on me the other day because I was like, it's unacceptable for us to go into the new season, whether it's Brentford or not, without a suitable backup or without a backup keeper. And people started throwing Runnerson in my face. Are you joking? You're actually having Runnerson is unfit to wear the Arsenal kit. Like, point blank. I don't care how harsh that sounds. If Leno were to get injured yesterday, we would go into the Chelsea match with Runnerson, Hine, or Kwanko. Is anybody else doing that? Does anybody else have this level of drama starting at the beginning of the season? No. It's literally just us. It's literally just us. That's how big of a mess we are. And it's unraveled just like that. First game of the season. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments because I blacked out a little bit and you guys are still here. There's 60 of you, no, 70 of you guys watching me ramble and black out. No. Mike W. Hey says, good morning, Jess. Good morning to you or good afternoon. Mr. Austin says, oh, wow, hi. Hi to you as well. Lamar Thomas says, Jess looks sleepy. I am sleepy. Well, I'm not really sleepy. I just woke up. So this is kind of how I look like when I first woke up. Dublin Gunner says, looks like we're just doing the destruction half of the rebuild this summer. Then we have to save up for bricks. Maybe. Joe C5 says, your hair makes you look like the snake-haired woman. I don't know if that's like a compliment or what, but like, hey, cool. Mag says the reality is the players aren't playing for Arteta anymore. I did say on Twitter that it reminded me of last season when people told me I was deluded for thinking that between November and December that the team had down tools and he had lost the dressing room, which he had. He had lost the dressing room, and it felt like that again this yesterday. Something is not right because it's not just okay if you just lost Aubameyang and Lacazette to illness. Why did we come out playing like that? It wasn't just we got outplayed or Brentford was just better than us. Yes, they did come out, they had more energy and da da da. But we had disbanded our entire way of playing. Everybody looked confused. Nobody looked confident. I've never seen Ben White look that bad on the ball. I never seen Tierney look that bad on the ball. Xhaka was non-existent. He was actively passing into areas that were it was like instead of passing it to the obvious pass that's like going to take us to goal, he takes the easy way out, stat padding his way through the game. Pepe, non-existent, and the kids, I mean, they tried, but bless them, they couldn't really do anything, and that doesn't say to me that we played a good team and we got outplayed. It looks like something is not right. And then people will say, you're trying to look for things. I'm not trying to look for things. I'm not stupid. The fans are not stupid. And that's another thing that I don't really like about Arteta and Adu is that they treat us like we're idiots and that we should just get behind the team and shut up. You guys are continuously feeding us garbage, and we're looking at what we're seeing, and we're not seeing what you're telling us is actually happening. So stop trying to make us feel like we're stupid. Something is not right, and you started out the season like a bunch of idiots. You said that you had a whole plan and preseason was going to help and all that. Has it? Are we ready for the season? Do you have a plan? If you do, your plan failed. We should not be here at this moment, and I don't really get behind the whole I get that the transfer window is difficult. But here's my thing, and I've thought about this a lot. At the beginning of the summer, there were a lot of reports that had come out by very reliable sources that we had more money than what people thought. Usually in every window we go into it being told that we're completely skint, we have to sell before we buy, we don't have a dollar, and we're going to have to loan players in. That's how we go into most transfer windows. This summer was quite different. Credible sources were saying that we had more money than usual. So when you go out and you spend 50 million on Ben White, we're thinking, well, that's because you have more money to do what you need to do. You have more money to just go out and get the business done. But as the window has unfolded, we're starting to realize that we actually do have to sell before we buy. And some of the sales that did not come in, maybe Bellerin, maybe Granit Xhaka, has stopped us from being able to actually address the issues that are really, really hurting us. It's okay to plug. I mean, we had to get a backup left back and a backup central midfielder, but that's bare minimum. Like, we should not be going into a window or into the new season without suitable backups. The issue still remains that there's plenty of spots or positions in the first 11 that just have not been addressed. If you only had 50 million plus the 25 million that you were willing to waste on Ramsdale, that's 75 million. You could have split that into 25 and brought in three players. Three players. You could have brought in a right back, a central midfielder, and a creative midfielder for that. You could have if you were smart. And that's what I'm saying. We will People are not stupid, and we don't think the transfer window is easy at the moment. But if you have 75 million, I haven't even spoken about the 25 million that you're getting for Willock. 50 million for Ben White, 25 million that you were willing to spend on Ramsdale. That's 75 million. That's 25, 25, and 25 that you don't always have to pay up front as well. You get to make small payments over time as well on these. That's three players. That's Awar, Max Aarons, and just for sake of this, just say Bruno Guimaraes for 30 million from Lyon. Bruno Guimaraes, Max Aarons, and Awar instantly make you a better team. You could have had them from the beginning of the window. They could have been in our team already. We could have sold Bellerin for peanuts and just used our money more economically. Okay, you probably would have still had Rob Holding in the back line. But before the window started, and anybody really think right-sided center back needed to be addressed? And did it need to be addressed with a $50 million player? Probably not, especially if you didn't have that money. And I'm not saying that Ben White is not a good player. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if I knew that at the start of the season, we were going to have not addressed central midfield, right back, and creative midfield, but we had $75 million to spend, apparently. I would have said, "Just buy 3 players for 25 million and move on. Just move on." Why are we spending time on Locatelli? That was a joke. Why are we spending time on Lautaro Martinez? Why are you spending time on players that you know you don't have the facilities to get? Only to leave us looking so stupid. I mean, at that point, you can still if you do that, you can just loan Bellerin out. You can just sell Xhaka to Roma for 12 million. If you use the 75 million to bring in 3 players that addresses 3 main issues in our squad. And that's before you sell Willock. Do you see what I'm saying? Then you can still sell Xhaka for 12. You put the 25 for Willock together with what you get for Xhaka. You can even bring in a striker. You can sell Lacazette to anybody at that point. So I get that the transfer window is difficult, but we made it more difficult by trying to play in a sandbox that we are not prepared to play in. So you don't really get as much grace from some people. Fabrice says everything we do as a club from top to bottom screams amateur hour. It's crazy to think that Wenger was holding everything up almost single-handedly. It's criminal to think after all these years. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's very true. Io says it's a perfect storm of incompetence at my football club. I mean, seriously. You guys, I mean, if you actually do the math, we could have started the season with every single position addressed if we had used the money properly. And that's I wasn't freaking out because I said from the beginning, it's if you spend 50 million on Ben White, that's fine. If you have the money and the ability to still solve the other issues further down the line. We clearly don't have that. It's obvious to me at this point that we would have needed to sell even more to get Madison. We would need to sell to get a right back. We need to sell to get a central midfielder. We need to sell to get a striker. But that's not actually what we had to do. If we had 75 million to spend, we could have been done with our window. It's just it's shocking what we've done. The more I think about it, the more I'm just like, and it's just I spent a lot of the window kind of like, okay, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. You know, I spoke to Elliot Smith from the Arsenal Vision podcast the day that we were being linked with Madison and Ben White and Ramsdale. And he went off. He went off about it. And now I really see why he felt that way because he anticipated this happening. That we would go into the window arrogantly thinking that we could spend $50 million on one player, only for us not to sell what we need to sell in a pandemic window at that, to still address other positions, and for us to go into the season looking exactly the way that we looked last season, trying to sell players that are uncommitted to this club, only for them to stay at the end of the window and for us to still have to rely on them. That's where we are. And I'm not saying Ben White is not a good player. I'm just saying, did we have to address that when 75 million could have gotten us a right back, an attacking midfielder, and a central midfielder, and we could have just given the other players away for pennies? The reason why we have to hold out is because if we don't, even if we sell Xhaka for 12, we're not going to be able to replace him with that. Nalituba says goalkeeper and midfield most important. Joshua A says, Jess, Arsenal don't want a bloated squad. Come on. I get that they don't want a bloated squad, but you don't have to have a bloated squad if you don't have to sell players for a certain amount because you need to make up the deficit because you spent 50 million on one player. Do you not think that Bellerin would have he would have if Inter is willing to take Denzel Dumfries for 10 million, do you not think that we could have not done a loan with an obligation to buy for Bellerin if we knew that we had 25 million to spend on Max Aarons? That's not a bloated squad. It's not a bloated squad if you have solutions that make sense. Nobody wants our players. Nobody wants them. You could have sold Xhaka for 12. You could have still brought in Bruno Guimaraes for about 30 million because you had the money, you just chose to spend it on something else. They were about to spend 25 million on Aaron Ramsdale. They walked away from the deal because it was 40 million. 25 million gets you a right back. 25 million gets you talking to Lyon for a while. You could have bought, I mean, hate to go back here, you could have probably tried to get Buendia. You could have probably tried to get Matthias Pereira as well. I'm sure you could have gotten him from West Brom for 25 million. There were options. We chose not to take them. Ben Ross says, absolutely shocking. It just is. Davion says, facts, Jess, the money could have been used more wisely. My caveat was always, you better have the rest of it, and we didn't have it. It's shocking. Pep Fraudiola says, Locke and Abba are definitely not sick. I don't think I'm I'm just gonna say this. If in a couple of days we find out that they weren't, I wouldn't be surprised. That's what I'll say. Um, let's see. Lord Gunnar says Onana 4, Awad 25, Max Aaron's 30, Lakanga 15, Tavares 8, Oates Edward 20. That's 100 million. And that's basically what we've spent already. That's isn't that almost every position taken care of except for you probably still need one more midfielder, like somebody who could start, but I get what you're trying to say. Like it's just poor. Like, it's just poor the way that we've moved in this whole thing, AK Gunner says, "We had Saliba, but decided to spend 50 million on Ben White. Adu and Arteta are wasting our financial resources. We need a goalkeeper, right back, CDM, attacking midfielder, and a forward. Those are priority positions." And we've addressed none of those. We've addressed none of those. None. And I don't think does anybody have confidence that we're gonna be able to and I get that a lot of people want to talk about Arteta, and we spoke about Arteta to death yesterday. I'm not saying that he's not an issue, but what I will say is that because he's the low man on the totem pole and he's the easiest person to remove, we'll just kind of look at him and say, well, if we had a different manager, things would be different. No manager is taking a squad that looks like this. No good manager is coming in with 5 or 6 senior players uncommitted to the club that aren't really that good anyway, and a bunch of kids. We don't have a team full of good pre-prime or prime age players that a manager would look at and say, "Yeah, I can make do with that." If you guys think Conte is coming into this team, I think you're deluded. Like and I hate to say that, but he would need 250 million off the bat to redo this squad, to do something with it. We're never going to give him that, and we're never going to pay his wages. So a manager of that caliber is not coming in. And the Cronkies would never want somebody who's not going to just deal with what they got. You guys know that. Gunnar Soul says, my confidence comes from a place of hope and not logic. I mean, that's pretty much all we can do. You know what I mean? So it's just not the manager. Like, he's the easiest person to change. He's the easiest guy to change, but I'm trying to figure out what manager is coming into this. This squad, when you look at it, exactly the same squad that we saw in the last 2 seasons where we were like, this is just not good enough. It's the same, only there's more kids. There's more kids that still need to be developed. And there's no money to get good players in. And there's no way to get these bad players out because nobody wants them. Nobody's going to come in and take Bern Leno and Xhaka and Aubameyang and Lacazette and just make them into the players that we think that they should be. These players are finished. Like, they're not it. Mag says David Moyes would honestly do a better job. One thing I will say is that what David Moyes is able to do is, first of all, he gets the respect of his players instantly. Like, he came straight into West Ham, respect. And I think that also has to do with the level at which West Ham is. But that's not to say like they're not a good team. I'm just saying David Moyes walks straight into there and you have to have a manager that walks straight into the locker room and the players sit up. I don't really think Arteta has that effect on this team at all. Then he took the players that he had and created a system for them to be successful in and feel comfortable and confident in. And when they get out on the pitch, they do it because they know if they don't, they will not play. So Arteta has not really done that. He has not really. We went into preseason. The funny thing about yesterday, it's not really funny, but we went into preseason. We started seeing the games and we saw that we were playing a high line. And a lot of us were like, why are we playing a high line? That's the way we're going to be playing. You didn't have Gabrielle, so you were willing to practice that in preseason with or without Gabrielle, which without him is pretty much suicide. But okay. So you do the high line and you want to do a high press. Then we get into the very first game of the season and you're not doing that. How are players supposed to get behind that? Have you seen a Moyes team, a West Ham Moyes team, go into any match looking anything other than what they look like the day before or the game before? No. They play the way they've been playing the entire time. They practice it and they implement it on the pitch so the players know what they're supposed to be doing. To have a team full of young players as well to just switch up the tactics on them was negligent on Arteta. Like, I think it's just because he's buckling under the pressure already. That's why he really doesn't want cameras in his face. He doesn't want people to know that there are real issues going on behind the scenes. It's not what they're making it out to seem. That documentary has come at the worst possible time for Arteta and Arsenal. There's no way he makes it through this season with cameras in his face. I tell you that right now. He was going to have a hard time making it through anyway. Now it's finished, isn't it? So I don't know. Let's see what you guys are saying. Neil says, I really want Arteta to succeed, but more and more I'm not seeing it happening. He's not making it through the season. He's just not. Dylan says, how are people like Kolasinac still at the club? Because we won't just pay him out. The reality is the only way that we get him off the books is to pay him the 5 million to pay him out for the rest of his contract. And he's holding out for it. And Adu is sitting around trying to play hardball instead of just getting the guy out of the club. Again, if we had spent our money better, we probably would have 5 million to give him to pay him out. Now we're sitting around haggling over 5 million, probably because we need that in order to get Odegaard as well. Usopp's Rubber Band says, morning, Jess, morning to you as well. Rancid Pumpkin says, would love to have an employer like Arsenal. Torreira's having a good time. Yeah, it also doesn't look good that Torreira has, pictures of him at Disneyland and stuff, whatever, like on the day that we're supposed to be playing. But, those are also decisions that will inevitably come back when we talk about Arteta's time at Arsenal. Was there not a way to implement or, bring Torreira back into the fold? Like, is he so bad that we couldn't use him at all? Can we not put our arm around him, like, and make him feel wanted so that he could do a job? I'm sure we could have used a DM yesterday. I'm sure we could use another DM the rest of the season. And I don't think everything that Torreira has done has been right, but the way that we ice people out sometimes I think is to the detriment and almost is just so arrogant. You know, we don't ice out the players that we should be icing out, but then the ones that maybe are a little bit on the bubble, we just kind of shove them off into the corner and say, "Here, we don't want you anymore." And the worst part is then you don't do what you're supposed to in order to replace them, and then we can see those players still because they're still on the books or they're loaned out, and we're like, "Well, why did you get rid of him if you weren't going to solve the issue?" You know what I mean? So it's just weird. It's just weird, but the whole point of this was, to talk about Aubameyang, and obviously, we don't know if it's true or not that we're looking to shop him around or we're willing to accept offers for him, and for me, I'm not really stressed out about where is he gonna go because quite frankly, I don't think anybody's gonna come in for him on those wages and in that form. But the fact that we're gonna have about 5 or 6 players that we were trying to offload that not only do we not want at the club, but they don't wanna be here, that we're gonna end up having to rely on for the remainder of the season, in a season where we're under pressure to to get Europe. really just reeks of failure. Like, it doesn't seem like it's gonna get done. So, yeah. Ola says, "Arrogant is the right word. All of our decision making is disgraceful." That's the word that keeps coming to me, is just two people that don't really have the clout to be as arrogant as they are. Phil says, "I honestly don't understand why Ainsley hasn't been utilized. He has the highest ceiling amongst all of our right backs, but he can never get the consistent run of games." And here's the thing: if you're going to ice people out because they don't have the right commitment level or the right attitude, or they're not good for the culture, you better have somebody better in their place. You better. And they better be off the books. That's the issue, is that we ice players out because they're not right for the culture and not right for, they don't have the right attitudes. And then we can still see them because they're still here, and we haven't replaced them with anybody better. So it's all for naught if you don't actually get the right person in place. Because I'd rather have the bad attitude person in the game, really, if we're honest, than what we're looking at right now. Because the options are Ainsley Maitland-Niles with a high ceiling that could do the job, or Bellerin. you know? Um, but yeah, and even like Ben White, I do feel bad for him. You know, this is what happens. We get new players in, we don't put them in a situation where they can be successful right off the bat for our team. We don't. We throw them in to the lion's den and say, "Fend for yourself." You have Chambers on your right, Marie to your left, Leno behind you. Look good. Look good. Even though this morning we know some bullshit has went down in the locker room. I don't blame Ben White, just like I don't blame Thomas Partey for last season. He had the exact same thing, where when he came back from his injury, he was thrown in with El Neni to his left, Bellerin behind him to the right. Like, we set these players up for failure. Why spend this amount of money on these players? And also with these high price tags, they feel so much pressure as well. So we put them under pressure. We don't surround them with the right players, and we expect them to look like their price tag. I don't even blame Ben White, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was a little bit like, "Why did I come here?" Because I'm sorry, Leno behind him, Chambers to his right, and Marie to his left is not even better than the quality that he left at Leeds and Brighton, to be honest. Let's just keep it 100. If we're honest with ourselves, he probably didn't look around and say, "This is definitely a step up." So, yeah. And Yannick, I don't know what happened in the locker room, but let's just be real, like, you don't come out and play that way just because 2 of your strikers are not available. There's definitely something going on, and there's something to the fact that Arteta was like, "I didn't have a say on the documentary." He makes it really obvious when he doesn't like something, and I know nobody likes cameras in their face, but if things are not going right behind the scenes, of course, you don't want cameras in your face. Before the game, you're talking about Willian, basically a "come hither, somebody come get him from us" type of thing. Like, there's something going on. You don't start out the season like that against Brentford. You should be confident, ready to go, energy, guns blazing. We didn't have any of that. All right, you guys. It's been about 30 something minutes. Just wanted to kind of chit chat for a minute. I'll be back on Monday for the post match show. Um, or maybe even before that, who even knows, but we will talk soon. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can become a member of the channel just when you go to the subscribe button, press join, and you can become a channel member and all of that great stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.